we often talk about when, I have a whole journey of hearing no for years, right? Experts telling me my vision wasn't going to work for cosmetics and all those kind of things. But I still believe that it's our own self-doubt that kills more dreams than almost anything else. It's our own kind of limitations that we put on ourselves, or our own reasons we give ourselves why we need to still wait to do something, or we're not quite ready to write the book, or any of those things, right?
Jamie, you got a magazine shoot today, you were saying. Tell us about what's going on over there.
Yeah, it's the book, my first ever book, Believe It, is launching in just under 5 weeks. We're under 5 weeks away. So I feel like I'm going to blink and it's going to be here. And so it's probably the most vulnerable thing I've ever done, where I just literally pour everything I have and all the things I wish I knew. It would have saved me a million nights crying myself to sleep, and the whole journey of starting in my living room and facing rejection for 3 years straight, solid, and building at cosmetics. And so now the 5-week mark, all the press starts, that it comes out when the book launches. So today is a magazine shoot all day long. And I'll share more soon. But, I was thinking about this, and actually, being MLK Day today, this morning I was in hair, getting ready. I haven't done makeup yet, in hair, and I was watching Dr. Martin Luther King's speeches, some of them, right, which I've done my whole life. And I watched one this morning that's all about growing, actually. It's all about like keeping it moving. And he talked a lot about your life's blueprint. And he was using these words long before so many other people were using them, right? And he talked about your life's blueprint, about how no one else can tell you you're not worthy. And when I was thinking about this, his words, I was kind of having this big aha moment, just to share with everyone in the Growth Day community this morning, in case you go through this too. But like, sometimes it's ourself that's the one telling ourselves we're not worthy. And on a
most
day,
of the time, probably.
Most of the time,
Most of the time. And you're making up stories about other people thinking you're not worthy.
Yes.
So either you're telling yourself, oh, I'm not worthy, or you're thinking they don't think I'm worthy. And either way, it's a story that's probably, making you feel worse than you really need to.
Exactly. And, on this day, right, I have this big magazine shoot all day. They want 6 different looks, all these things. First of all, I have to fight in my own head the whole imposter syndrome, which is like, how is a girl like me, who is a waitress at Denny's, all these things, doing 6 looks? How do we even figure out what looks are? That's the first thing. Like fashion looks, right? You see me, I love some sweats. I love some comfy sweats, right? So I'm like, okay, 6 looks today.
Does 6 looks mean 6 outfits?
Mm-hmm.
Or does that? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Because when I do magazine shoots, they usually they show up with stuff and they put it on. I wander around, and that's about it. I'm really. And that's about it. I'm the worst. I don't. I don't do press. I decided very early on I didn't want to be in the PR land. So very rarely do I do press. And every time I do, I realize why I don't. It's so exhausting. I really admire people who can do days of press and they do it consistently. We take for granted. It's really exhausting. People are bossing you around all day. You're just kind of wondering when you get to sit down or get to eat. It's a full schedule. Everyone wants to be famous, or they want days of magazine shoots and all that. And then they do their first PR junket in New York. And you do 16 shows in a day. And at the end, it's a privilege and a joy, and it's fun. And at the same time, it's work. You had to get up. You got up, 5 o'clock today just to prepare and get hair and makeup and everything else getting ready?
Yeah, we had hair at 5, had to get up at 4 to shower, all that stuff. Got to. And, here's the thing is what a blessing, what a gift that I get to spread the word about the book. That's what really drives me, right? But what I'm realizing, and Brendan, listening to MLK's speech this morning, Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, talking about telling ourselves we're not worthy, or having other people tell you you're not worthy, exactly what you said. This is a day that the old me, the me that for decades has done lots of different things, and I'm working still, as you know, I'm a lifetime student, still working to grow out of this. The old me for sure would have let my inner critic take over all day and just powered through, hoping does this outfit fit? Are they thinking I really should be in this shoot? Are they regretting doing a story on all those things we tell ourselves, right? It doesn't have to be a magazine shoot. It could just be hopping on Zoom for something at work, or, you know, how many times, you know, that we get an invite to a high school reunion. Brendan, I don't know if you'll relate to this, but you coach so many people that I think you'll understand this at such a deep level. We get an invite to a high school reunion or something like that. So many of us, the first thing we think of is, oh, when I show up, how much weight have I gained? How much, all these things, right? To the point where we don't even enjoy it.
Yes.
And I remember a quote. Will you remind us all, if you remember it? There's a quote you said, and I saved it because I look at it often, and it said something about, I'll paraphrase, and then maybe you'll remember it exactly, but you can accomplish all these things, and the worst thing that could possibly happen is you get to the end of your life and you look back and you're like, I forgot to enjoy it.
I forgot to enjoy it. Yes, that's the worst. Imagine looking in the mirror, you're 80, 90, 100 years old, and you had longevity, but you look in the mirror and you just go, you never felt it. You never enjoyed it. You never took the time to be there. And I also think, coming back to your high school reunion idea, or the magazine shoot, or all of you who are walking in to do, networking in a Zoom room, or when we come back to regular life and we're hanging out with people here again. I love this saying. It's not from me. I can't remember who said it, but I love it. Love it. There's two kinds of people in the world. One walks into the room and goes, "Here I am." And the other person walks in the room and goes, "Oh, there you are." And they're excited to see you. They're excited to acknowledge you, to validate you, to welcome you, to make sure that you feel at home. Yeah. And those are the people that we want to be in our lives. Those are that's being the role model, but it's also being, less ego driven. Instead of being so concerned, what do I look like? Who am I like? What's going on here? I've always, the way I got over myself, because everyone still knows and grow, I'm a dork. I love geeking out on personal development. I love books. I love to write. I'm more of even though I teach and I'm, millions and millions of hours of video by now, I generally mostly enjoy being alone, dorking out about my ideas, drawing up, creating ideas and charts and everything everywhere. And so when I go to talk with people, often I want to share that with them. And I have all these ideas. And I know there's lots of people, ideas. I just want to talk ideas. But the best thing I ever did to get over myself and be comfortable with other people is instead ask them about their ideas. Ask about, if you walk into your high school networking, gym and you walk in, instead be like, hey, ask people, hey, how you doing? Hey, what do you think of all this? Yeah. One of my favorite questions, what do you think of all this? Oh, I love the punch bowl, or look at this, or hey, this is happening. I love that we're together. Hey, how you been? Just acknowledging and appreciating other people is such a lost art because we tend to have agendas, because we tend to want to project something. And here's the number one thing. Most people really believe the idea they only have 10 seconds to make a first impression, or they only have 30 seconds to say it right. And I'm like, nothing in life that matters is judged in 30 seconds. In other words, give yourself time to build a relationship. Give yourself time to enjoy that moment. It seems like, well, you have 7 minutes on that major show. I'm like, there's going to be 100 other shows in your future. Some shows you're going to do are an hour-long podcast. Some shows you're going to do are in person. And so I'm just here to say, enjoy it, but also make it about other people. Ask them, validate them, and you'll feel better.
Of course, when we talked about the other day about reading customer letters on QVC, right? It was a whole thing in the green room of putting into practice the idea that I think, exactly to your point, it's like, oh, this isn't about me. It's about something so much bigger, right? And I think that's huge. And I was going to ask you actually, because I think this lifelong journey for so many people of overcoming our inner critic, right? And even going to a whole new, transcending the whole new thing and going, oh, who's my inner champion? Can I wake that person up, right? Yes. Can I wake up my inner champion? And so many of us are like, oh, inner champion, maybe you haven't heard your inner champion ever, or in a long time. And so, Brendan, coaching millions of people like you have, I'm so fascinated to hear for you, like if you also or I should say, because I think this is universal, I think this happens to everyone, but when you're in a moment where you're doing something and all of a sudden that inner critic, you hear that inner critic, right? How do you turn down the volume on that? What do you do to go to silence your inner critic or handle your inner critic or overcome your inner critic and then swap it to your inner champion? Or what are your tools? Because I feel like no matter what we're doing in life, where we're at in life, what our situation is inside our own family, inside our jobs, inside our hopes and dreams, it's just this, it's the biggest obstacle, I think, for so many of us. Yeah.
I think one, you have to realize that replacing the inner critic in the moment is super hard. And so you have to think of everything you're doing is like, there's the pre-work, there's the actual in the moment flow work, and then there's the post work. The pre-work is, okay, before the inner critic is to start, you start your morning by tapping into your authentic self, meditating, feeling, thinking about who you are, what's important to you, your morning routine of intention setting, your morning routine of purpose statements, your morning routine of filling your head with good thoughts, your morning routine of acknowledging your strength to show up another day, your day of gratitude for appreciating that you have these opportunities. Meaning you got to start the day. The growth day starts with self-talk. And the self-talk, you have to condition the positive voice inside your inner champion. You have to amplify that, turn it up, and talk to it every morning and every day if you ever want that to be louder than the critic. What most people do is they bumble through the day. A doubt comes up. They hear it. They go, is that true? They start amplifying that thing because there's no other voices. Your job is to find your authentic voice, your acknowledging, aware, compassionate, loving self voice. Give that so much volume so many times that's just, hey, that station's louder. That station is louder because you're on that station more. So now when the other one starts interfering and coming in, you can go, oh, what is it saying here? And it's almost always, the inner critic is really a doubtful voice. It's almost always a doubtful voice. I doubt my capability. I doubt who I am. I doubt I'm capable. I'm worthy. I doubt myself. And doubt doesn't mean stop or shut down. Doubt means, oh, this is a signal to be more present and intentional. Oh, this isn't to question myself and my capabilities. It's going, oh, hey, I don't know if I can do this. Let me pay attention. Doubt's a great signal to pay attention and to engage the best of who we are. It's like, oh, those butterflies, that's saying, oh, let's align here. Let's get focused here. Let's bring some attention to this. So first, don't think that voice will ever go away. It's going to be there. It's always going to pop up. But don't think it's a negative thing telling you you're terrible. It's saying pay attention. And then also up the station on that authentic, acknowledging, loving self-talk each day, the affirmative side of who you are. Listen to that so often and give yourself that blessing so often, because some of you, it's not going to be your spouse who's going to acknowledge you or validate you. So, some of you, it's not going to be your parents or your sister, your brothers, or the people in your industry. They're all going to doubt you or judge you or push you. So you've got to affirm yourself. You've got to tap into that truth, that knowing, that beauty, that soul, that spirit, that authenticity that says, why? I do deserve to have a good day today. I do have good intentions for today. Let me listen to that part of me more often. And that conditioning of positive, affirming self-talk starts becoming a part of real confidence, right? Conditioned self-talk becomes confident capability.
So good. You know, I'm looking at so many of your comments right now, and so many people are saying this is so timely. I needed to hear this right now because, you know, one of the things I love about this is when we talk about even conditioning and starting our day that way with positive self-talk. I hope the Growth Day Morning Show is a big part of that, of just hearing that, you know, inspiration, like all of us coming together and growing. But, you know, one person also, this Sarah, just commented that, you know, the inner critic always comes back, right? And you're saying, it always comes back. And here's the thing is, I feel like our inner critic can get so loud. And I feel like so many of us know when we're hearing it, when we're hearing that inner critic, A, we would never say those things to another human being. And B, when we're saying them about ourselves, we kind of still know, in big part, we know they're not true, but but somehow we still, it's so easy to believe it. It's easy to know We're made for more. We're created for more. We have more to give, more to offer, more to serve, more inside of us than we're expressing or giving or living right now. And yet it's so easy to still doubt it anyways, right?
What if the inner critic was an inner guide? And the inner critic was just saying to you, hey, right now, you've got your station turned on to me, the inner critic, the low station, the self-doubt station.
Yeah.
And you, instead of going, oh, that critic's so scary, and let me find all the reason to criticize me, it's like, oh, the inner critic is actually calling you to summon the better part of you. It's saying, hey, you're listening to the lowly insecurities right now. Let me amplify those insecurities so you're aware that you're listening to them, dummy. What you need to do right now is switch to the other station. I am guiding you with all this blaring noise to summon a higher part of you. Mm-hmm. The inner critic is summoning the higher part of you, not shutting you down. It's summoning you. It's not going to go away. There's always going to be that part of you going, hey, dummy, you're smarter, you're better. Hey, let me judge you just enough that you get edgy and you go, no, I'm better than this, and you show up. It's egging you on to show up better, not shut down. As soon as you get that, oh, I'm being egged on like a good friend. Because listen, the inner critic is you.
Yeah.
And that's a good friend to you saying, hey, I'm going to bug you just enough. I'm going to shame you just enough. I'm going to doubt you just enough until you finally go, F no, let's go. I'm going to try to piss you off. That's what the inner critic is going to do. They're there to amplify you to go, no, I am better than this. It is actually summoning strength. And if you can hear that, instead of being diminished, be called. When crisis doesn't diminish you, when conflict doesn't diminish you, when fear doesn't diminish you, but rather you sense it as a calling to rise to something, to a higher standard, to serve, this is why today we celebrate Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King had the same challenges so many people did. What he did was he said, I have a dream. I'm going to rise up. I'm going to learn to do all of these things that he didn't know how to do, to lead an incredible movement that we still celebrate today. You have to think about it, like, whoa, that's 60 years later. We're still celebrating this person. Why? Because all those calls, all those judgments, all that hate, he said, I'm not going to let the darkness shut me down because it is only light and love that will lift us up. So I'm going to amplify those. You can hit me with all the hate you want, but I'm going to activate love. That's the change. When it's not a diminishment, but a calling to rise above it, that's a mindset shift that now helps us activate. I hope that helps everybody.
So good, you guys. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So many comments. So many comments.
I appreciate each of you. And thank you for cheering me and Jamie on in this Growth Day morning show. This is new for us too. We both had doubts. We had our first couple of days were technologically challenged on both sides. I still think I look so goofy with these white things hanging in my ear. I still got this camera taped up with this blue tape over here. Jamie's got hers. So we're still figuring it out, but we feel like, okay, so what? We're not doing it perfectly. We are called to serve. Stop worrying if you show up perfectly or you look perfect. Show up to serve. And enough times doing that, you're recognized.
So good what you said. And I always, one of the things I think about a lot is we all face opposition, right? Sometimes it is our inner critic, but we also all have a calling. And I think that so many times, I believe always your calling is stronger than your opposition. But so much of life comes down to which one we listen to. Yes. And you talk about, Dr. Martin Luther King, and I think obviously so much opposition, during his time. And obviously his calling was so much bigger, right? And that's what he listened to. And I think that, I don't know, I just keep going back to those words you shared earlier too, about walking into a room and instead of saying, here I am, saying, here you are, right? I think that's when we make it not about us and it's something so much bigger than us. For me, I think that's, in my journey, that's, how one of my best strategies for overcoming that inner critic, because for me, that inner critic is there every single day. Every single day. I even doubted, even though I've gone on national television thousands of times with no makeup. This is my first Growth Day morning show in no makeup. And I had a moment where I'm like, but it's like, oh, no. The only way to have authentic human connection is to fully show up as ourselves. The only way to serve is to not worry about stuff like that literally doesn't matter, right? And so it's kind of growth in progress, growth in process, I think, for so many of us. And some of the tips you shared on how you frame in your own mind that inner critic, I've never heard that before. That's so powerful. That's so powerful, as if it's the station summoning you to get so angry that you're like, F that, and you transcend it. Huge.
Yeah, it's your best friend egging you on, saying, oh, it's like if your best friend was like, oh yeah, you suck. And you're like, hold it. You know, it's just like if you ever saw people playing sports and you're playing basketball with someone, the crap talking is done to summon a higher level of game. They've actually measured this in communication studies in sports. Less crap talk tends to lead to less incredible performance. And it's not because we're not diminishing each other. We're egging each other on to play at a higher level. Now, I know there's lots of judgment about even that in sports, but I think my point is recognizing that all your inner fears aren't meant to shut you down. They're meant to help you pay attention. You know, you were talking about resistance and all the resistance. And I hope everybody, by the way, spend some time today watching some, speeches from Dr. Martin Luther King. If you haven't read the autobiography, the official biographies, or any of his collected works of speeches, I can't even imagine this day for the last 23 years this year now. I read his speeches. I have a big book that my dad gave me that I just read his speeches. And it's so, so powerful to see what he was willing, and not just him, the entire Southern Christian Leadership Conference and so many other great leaders of that time, trying to really speak up for something. And he said, if our main question is, who were you serving? And he said that if we aren't willing to speak up for what is right, then we're not living life. And so many of his great quotes that everyone will share on the internet today, I'm sure, just remind us to stand for something. Even if you are scared, stand for something. You're not doing a magazine shoot today. You're standing for something today. You're standing for a message. Yeah. We aren't worried about our insecurities of, I'm like, is my kettlebell in the shot today? I hope not, and I don't even care. It's like we stand for something at Growth Day. We stand for the belief that you can grow, that you can change, that you can have better days, that you can shift your attitude. We stand for something. So we're not trying to make everything pretty. You're going to stand for something today. And everyone needs to realize, what do you stand for today? What is it that you stand for? And the less you ask yourself that, the more the insecurity voice just fills it in. Oh, you aren't intentional enough to stand for something? Let me just fill it in with some noise here.
Yeah.
That's what happens. I would say your negative self-talk is because you haven't filled in the void.
Yeah, so good.
You got to. I work on this. Look at this. I got this. I pulled this off the desk. This is a calendar of affirmations from Hay House. This is Louise Hay. I hope you all read "You Can Heal Your Life" from Louise Hay. Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, who were like who really made and rounded out Hay House with Reed Tracy as CEO. It's a whole book of affirmations. I've been doing personal development for 20 years professionally. I still read my affirmations and I read them out loud because I want that voice to be activated. I would love for you all in your morning routine to read out your Bible verses, or read out your favorite motivational quotes, or read out that part of that spiritual text that you love. Read something out, like activate the voice. You've been given voice. If you have the blessing of speaking, you've been given voice. Activate that in a positive, affirming way. And it becomes a language pattern in your head that's louder than the insecure, quiet things. You know what I mean?
Because a lot of people, we talk about dreaming big today. And I feel like a lot of people have these reasons. They think they're not quite ready to dream big yet. And maybe they think they don't have the right support around them, or they don't have the right setup on their computer, or they don't have the right team they've hired, or they don't, all these things. And I think part of you showing and me showing, hopefully both of us, all the real stuff, it's like, oh, you don't always need to have all that stuff together to start, or to dream big and to start having that vision. That's a big vision for where you're going while enjoying the moment.
People, I love that. Big vision for where you're going while enjoying the moment and knowing that 100% of success stories you have ever heard, that success story began with somebody going 90 miles an hour and putting the wheels on as they were going and building the thing. They endured years of mess and disorganization and trying to figure out and doubt and risk of failure on the precipice daily. And you don't get that easy path when you want to do great things. Yeah. It's difficult. Les Brown always said, I love Les Brown. Les has been on our stages. Les is a personal development legend. I hope you know who he is. Les Brown always said, he's like, if you want your life to be easy, do hard things. If you want your life to be hard, do easy things. And it just says, it's like, oh, you have to push. You have to struggle. Here's what I want everyone to know. Thinking big today. This is my message to you. And thinking big. You are clueless to the depths of your capabilities. You have no idea what you are capable of. You have no idea what your full potential is. And I'm not judgment. I don't know either. Like, there's one guy up there. For me, I'm a spiritual person, so God's got me. God knows the immensity of the soul he put into this body, and no one else does, including me. I have no idea the immensity of the challenges God's got lined up for me 5 years from now, or 10 or 3 or 4 minutes. Like, you don't know. But what you do know is you're going to arrive and you will be summoned to call your best forth to serve one day. You will be summoned to rise above your own little insecurities and comforts and joys and ask, wow, how can I get more out of myself to be of service in this moment? Whether that is your first 2 years with a new baby, and you're like, my eyes, I haven't slept, you know? Or it's that first 4 years of your startup. It's going to demand so much of you, but you will rise to it. You will be capable. You will learn as you go. So stop all the waiting, get in the game, put the wheels on as you're going, move towards that dream with more rapidness, because you'll figure it out as you go. It won't be perfect. Jamie said, you're so vulnerable. Yet the other day you said to me, I feel like never in my life, Brendan, have I dropped more balls, I think you were saying.
And right now.
Yeah, tell them about that, because you're thinking big, but she's built $1 billion business. And right now, even after having that experience, she feels like this is life, y'all. Anyway, tell them about that.
I think, when I think back to the early days of building at Cosmetics, there were years of I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And I was trying to do every job in my living room because I couldn't afford to hire anybody. And I think anytime we're also doing something new or dreaming big and trying to go to new levels, just the newness of all of it is overwhelming, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. And so, at the end of a 10-year journey with that, building over 1,000 employees and a $1 billion company and all that, I knew a lot about the beauty industry and about manufacturing and legal and acquisitions and building a team and leadership and all those things, right? And now, as a first-time author, I actually
a whole new game.
A whole new game. I feel literally I'm back in my living room, not knowing what I don't know, right? And it's a growth, a major season of growth for me. And, you and I, Brendan, talk a lot about just the idea of being a lifelong student. And I'm proud to be a lifetime student. And I'm honored to learn from everyone in our community right now who's posting in the comments and posting in Facebook and posting in Instagram. I'm part of the Growth Day Morning Show. We learn from each other. I learn from all the other Growth Day coaches. And I'm in a season right now of going, okay, because for the last 5 years, I've been offered book deals because of my story, but I didn't want to have a ghostwriter do it. So I said no for 5 years. Because I have learned in my life, like, you cannot fake authenticity. And, one of the things I talk about in the book a lot actually is how, authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees failure. And that's in everything, right? And I talk about all the lessons I've learned around that in the book. But then for me to have that book actually truly serve at the highest possible level, I wanted to write every word myself. I knew it had to be authentic. So So this has been 2 years, actually, a year and a half, little over a year and a half of growth and of dropping so many balls and,
learning new things, messing it
learning
up,
new
trying to
things.
get into it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you saw me when I got the first cover in, I was cutting it out and taping it to Jay Shetty's book because it was the right size. Every little thing I'm like trying to figure it out, and because I want it to be authentic and I want it to be right and I want to have no regrets. But yeah, I am dropping balls everywhere in terms of, I mean, last night I was up all night writing web copy, writing because I want it to be authentic to like the heart and soul of how I want to serve. And I'm doing a big launch event, which we'll talk about later. Because it's still top secret, but we're going to tell everyone on growth day first. But
she's doing it big. She's going for it. Listen, she decided to write a book. And she had, I want everyone, I know some of you are thinking about writing a book or launching something new. When she said, I'm going to write a book, she said, I want it to be a bestseller. I want it to really impact millions of people. I want it to be a New York Times bestseller. I want to really get it out there. Even though, please listen, she'd never written a book, had no idea how to write a book, and had zero idea how to promote something.
Yeah.
Her confidence in thinking big came from her belief in her ability to figure things out. She's like, I'll figure it out. So your big vision should not be limited by today's skill set or today's competency. Your big vision should be based on your service you want to give, your dream you want to live with your family. And you will develop the skills along the way as you get in motion towards the thing. You don't start the journey perfect. The definition of perfection is to perfect. To perfect requires that you start. You start something, release something, launch something, and you perfect as you go. Perfect is a verb. It is done to something that is out there, that is released, that is built to perfect. And so you don't start perfect, you perfect. And then as soon as you go, oh, okay, we're going to start this Growth Day morning show. We don't know how to plug it into Instagram or Facebook. We don't know how to use an outwork mic, these mics. We don't know what the heck we're doing. Our first 4 days, we were just perfecting how to do that little piece. We still are. I think that's so important. And Jamie, I want to give you credit because sometimes you feel like you're dropping so many balls because you're so good at what you're doing in every other area, but you're also doing awesome and you're getting great momentum, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm just trying to be brave, and I'm trying to, and this, this is something that I think is huge too, is we often talk about when, I have a whole journey of hearing no for years, right? Experts telling me my vision wasn't going to work for cosmetics and all those kind of things. But I still believe that it's our own self-doubt that kills more dreams than almost anything else. It's our own kind of limitations that we put on ourselves, or our own reasons we give ourselves why we need to still wait to do something, or we're not quite ready to write the book, or any of those things, right? And I get why, because doing it all and putting ourselves out there is scary. And sometimes it's easier to not dream big, because then we don't have to be afraid of not hitting that mark, or we stay in our comfort zone, right? But I think that to recap what you said in the start of this, which is so good, it's so good, is until we take those chains off we put on ourselves, we don't know how much we're capable of. We don't know the level we're capable of dreaming and serving and giving and creating and ideating and inspiring, right? And leading and all of those things. And I think that, and
the level of discipline you're all capable of. The level of, so Jamie is in what we call a launch window. So for those who are new, Jamie is launching a book called Believe It, and it comes out next month. I hope that you will pre-order on Amazon. It's called Believe It by Kern Lima. Comes out next month. She's in this time we call a launch window. A launch window is when your life becomes very deep work, essentialism, high performance habits. You are doing this thing. A lot of balls are falling all over there because you have this limited amount of time to launch this thing. And until you've been through that several times, you don't know how much you can get done. I'll give you an example of thinking big. This month, if you told me Okay, Brendan, in 1 month, listen to y'all, in 1 month, rebranded the company, onboarded 20 plus people and teams from outsourcing and internal all around, launched a new offering, brought in all our new growth coaches, in other words, found like 8 other new promotional partners and friends to serve, built a new software team, building the software, serving all of our customers without missing too many beats, launching a new community platform, launching this show, and somehow enjoying the month. If you told Brendan, 19-year-old Brendan, that was, he'd be like, I don't know how to hire. I don't know what a brand is. I don't know what a company is. What is it? Like, if you told your former self that, or your future self, I should say, you don't know what you're capable of. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, look at me, because feel like I'm putting the wheels on as I'm going. But I said, okay, let's just get in motion. We're going to figure it out. We're going to go. It's crunch time. Let's go. Let's move things forward. Move things forward. You will perfect as you go. But no way could I imagine that we could do all of this in a single month until you go for it, guys. You got to go for your dreams. Thinking big means moving big, taking big action, taking daily, you might call it small actions, but those daily small actions compound. You got to get in the game. Some of you, it's so easy to sit it out and you're still waiting for someone's approval or someone's understanding. It's like, if you feel like no one understands you, you have no one to blame but you. We have to learn. And I don't say that judgmentally, I had to learn to communicate. I sucked at communicating. I felt like I didn't have connection with people because I didn't know how to communicate. Be vulnerable, share emotions, like create human, like good friendships. I didn't know how to do that. So I did like a lot of you personal growth lovers who read How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie. Anyone read that? Oh my God, changed my life.
Yeah, I need to reread it. I read it like 20 years ago.
So good.
Yeah.
Such a classic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so
I did that because I was terrible with people. And so now I communicate to millions of people daily. So if you told that really awkward dude, oh, you're going to talk to millions of people, you didn't believe it. But as you jump into the dream and you get momentum, you start to believe it more. You get more skills, more capabilities. Those capabilities lead to competency. That competency leads to confidence, and you're moving. I don't know.
Yeah. And not only do you talk to millions of people, you train other incredible teams. I know I always bring up Oprah's team on the show, who I know you've trained, but you train so many people how to do it also. So it's like, not only do you do it now, you also are like one of the top people in the world at helping some of the top people in the world do it themselves. So it's pretty remarkable. And one thing I want to share, because I'm reading the comments, a lot of people saying, oh, it's hard to unchain ourselves. It's hard to start. It's hard to start when we don't know if our idea is good enough, or we don't know if our dream is right, and all that kind of thing. And one thing you just said that I just want to call out, because I think it's really important, is that sometimes people do cheer for you after you've made it. And I want to call this out, okay?
Yes,
because
so true.
I've lived through this. I have lived through this, okay? I have so many stories, and that's why. So everyone writing a book, it's like it is the greatest joy to go, oh my gosh, if people knew I went through all this, they would feel less alone. They would feel like they can get through it too, because this is the real stuff that happens. But there were so many people that did not cheer for me until after my company was a success, or after we were splashed in all the magazines, or after. And often when they start cheering for you, then it's in the form of, I always knew that you'd make it, or I'm so proud of you. I've been rooting for you from the beginning. You're like, no, you were. But it's okay, right? I think it's or they're like, they're telling people how they know you, and it's wild to watch this. And it's not that they mean harm. Here's what when I've peeled back the layers on this, there's a couple lessons here I want to share with anyone, especially if they're scared to start, if they're scared to take that jump, if they're scared to dream big and call their shot and go for it and all of that. Because what we start to do, I think, as humans, is we share our dreams or our ideas with the people around us. Sometimes we share them in groups. And then sometimes we share them with experts or with, people in our industry that have had a lot of success or whatever. And then when we don't get the kind of response we're hoping for, right? Then we start to doubt ourselves and we start to think we're not ready, or we think, oh, you know what? A million other people have done this idea. Like maybe I shouldn't do it. It's already been done so many other times. So here's the big thing I've learned, okay, is first of all, as we know, the only way to ever have a human connection is to show up authentically, right? And that can be with your partner, with a friend, with your customers online, with what you're doing, right? With how you're launching your dream. So just to take a step back, if you are doing something authentically, right, your dream. So in my case, there's a million beauty companies out there, and I launched a beauty company. Well, there's millions of them. Someone had already done it. Millions of people had already done it, right? But when you do something authentically, no one can do it the way you're doing it, right? So by definition, what you're doing is novel. By definition, it's never been done before. And here's what I've learned. Other people, typically, even experts, even visionaries, they typically can't imagine something being successful unless subconsciously they've already seen proof that it's already been done and it's already been successful.
Yes.
But because you're doing it authentically to you, it's never been done before. So don't be surprised when the people around you who love you, or the experts you have so much respect for, don't initially give you the reaction to your big dream or your big idea. It's because no one's done it the way you're going to do it. So it's never been done before. It's novel, it's new, right? And most people would never admit this, but unless subconsciously they've seen it that way and they've seen it succeed, they're not going to believe that it will. So, yeah.
Except people who have done it themselves. And like you and I believe in people. We believe in you guys so much because when you meet people who came from nothing and they built it and they did it, they're the ones who usually are on board. Like, sounds like, go for it. Don't know if it's going to work, but cheer them on, encourage it. Like people who've actually done it are the most encouraging. Yes.
Yeah. And we've gone through the journey of hearing thousands of people not believe in us. And then when you come out of the other side of that, you're like, and you have a whole new perspective, right? But the truth is, I mean, in my own journey, for example, as it pertains to building the company, I also learned years later, the hard way, after crying myself to sleep a lot of nights, after hearing a lot of no's, I learned, oh, wait, most of the beauty retailers, they're amazing and they're great. And they all said no to me for years, but they've also never actually built anything themselves.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, oh, and to your point, that's why I'm so passionate about Growth Day and supporting it however I can, but also this morning show, right? Because it's like when you surround yourself with people that are in that space that share these kind of stories, then you're like, oh, okay, I get it that like Aunt Margie said that she didn't think this was going to be a success, but that's okay. She loves me anyway, and she's never built something like this. So she's seeing it through the best lens she knows how, but I'm not going to let that penetrate me, or me calling my shot, me going for my dream, me dreaming big, right? So I want to share that to you this morning.
Interesting though is when we're feeling insecurities. I'm obviously familiar with the term imposter syndrome, and I've always said imposter syndrome isn't a bad term. You have to be good at being an imposter before you are actually the thing. It's like little girls, you watch them, and they impersonate what it's like to be a mommy, or to play house, or to be a teacher, or whatever it is, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. And I remember every job I ever had from age like 16 on, day one, I always felt like, oh my, what am I doing here? I better pretend that I belong here. I better act like all the other people I see. And, it's not authentic, but that's kind of how you survive in the beginning, is to just like, oh, I'll just impersonate what I think I'm supposed to be acting and doing. And that's just what we do to make ourselves fit in. And it's all that we know. And I think for so many people, we do that until we're like, okay, what happens if I just try this little thing and see how people respond to it when I'm actually myself? What was that moment for you? And walk us through the fear that you had before you did it. And what was it?
Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh. Hearing you talk about this makes me so excited because my instincts are I literally just want to ask you questions for the whole show, which is, you know what I mean? Because you also went on that journey in your own fitness whole world.
Oh yeah.
I think you were Guinness World Record holder.
Crazy.
I'm literally doing a show with a Guinness World Record holder right now. This is, and
my mom is so proud.
Yeah. Well, and then you transitioned to like sharing all the stuff, not just anyways. Yeah, I love it. One thing you said too, and this is something that I went on my own journey for of doing that is I remember, when Oprah once said when she started, she would try to pretend and mimic Barbara Walters when she would go on television, right? And then she eventually had this realization after she was comfortable in that space, kind of to your point, where she was like, oh, I think I could be a better version of Oprah than I can be a Barbara Walters.
Yeah. Do you remember that moment where you're like, I'm going to just do this and let's see how it goes?
I do. And it came after that season of big setback. So what I mean by that is I was anchoring the news. And since the time I was a little girl, I would sit in my living room, I'd watch Oprah. And I thought my whole life, I want to interview other people. That's what I wanted to tell other people's stories. And so after school, I was working as a news anchor, and I started in real small market news. And much like being a student, by the way, to your point earlier, I had friends that got their internships in big stations. But sometimes when you go in the really big fancy stations, you kind of just pour coffee or whatever. And I went to an unpaid internship in Yakima, Washington, where it was like the team was so lean that you had to do everything. So I got to learn how to write copy and edit video tape to tape, old school, and shoot one man band style, right? Everything like and run the teleprompter with the foot pedal while I was, doing a story and all those things. And I just knew that's what I want to do. And so I had, I was working in TV news, and I thought this is going to be my whole career. And I'd worked up to a station, a local Fox station in Portland, Oregon. And I was anchoring the weekend morning news. And this sort of big season of self-doubt, big season of setback came when I started getting this skin condition called rosacea, which is hereditary. There's no cure for it. And for me, it would get so severe that like my cheeks they'd feel like sandpaper. I would get huge bumps all over, and I would be anchoring the news live. And then I would hear in my earpiece from the producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. Can you wipe it off? Like live in the show. And I knew I couldn't wipe it off. And I knew what it was that makeup breaking up and the redness coming through. So for the first time in my life, I started being aware of makeup and buying, I spend my paycheck, which isn't very much in television news, started buying products like from the pro makeup artist shops, and then the drugstores, and then anything I could get from department stores. I would try to get the free samples first. And then after that, I would try like, okay, it's a $200 foundation, but maybe this works, right? And no matter what it was, it didn't work. It either wouldn't cover it, or it'd be so thick that I would be talking on the news and it would look like a mask of clay cracking.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was just like, and so I went through this season of self-doubt, the season of thinking, okay, am I going to get fired? Am I going to lose viewers? Because I went to a dermatologist to explain there's no cure, and I got all the prescription stuff and none of it was working. And I had this kind of big aha moment where I thought, wow, if I can figure out like how to make a product that works, it'll help me, but it may help so many other people out there too. And in that journey, right? But by the way, I knew nothing about the beauty industry. I had no connections. I didn't know how it was possible. I just started getting this kind of like knowing, I guess. And well, what if? Could I figure it out? Could I do it? What would happen? And I didn't realize at the time that it was a big setback, that was a setup to something I was supposed to do. On this journey, though, when we talk about going from imposter into to just full confidence of who we finally are, I had a big epiphany happen. And I realized, after trying so many products out there, I realized, why can't I freaking find anything that works? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And then I realized, and this was 2007. I realized, my whole life, to the point of your question, my whole life, I've always seen these ads on television or in magazines, selling beauty products. And the models always have perfect skin.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anyone that has, bright red rosacea with bumps on it in an ad. And then I realized, I don't even know if they're wearing the product they're selling. And then I realized this whole kind of big epiphany of, that my whole life as a little girl, then growing up, when I would see those ads, I would love them. I would aspire to look like that. But yet deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And this big kind of moment came over me where I was like, you know what? And by the way, I'm going on air as a news anchor every day, trying to look perfect, trying to do all those things. I had this moment where I'm like, what if this isn't even about the product? What if I could figure out how to create a product that works? But then what if I launch this beauty company and I take my makeup off, which I'd never done in my life, take my makeup off and show, like, if I could create a product that works, I'll just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea and show how it works. And maybe one day I could get on QVC and then use models that are all different ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin problems and call them beautiful and mean it.
Have you felt more self-doubt before QVC or right now?
Before QVC, but I still feel it now.
Yeah,
it's still a journey. I think that there's so many areas in my life I figured out how to overcome it, how to turn down the volume on it, how to believe in myself, and I try to apply those all the time. It's a lifelong journey. For me, of believing where I come from doesn't determine where I'm going, of turning down like the volume on past mistakes or on miscalculations or that kind of thing. And, believing that, I think at the end of the day, I think all of us, no matter where we're at in life, on a journey of it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
And,
one thing that happened to me that I share in the book for the first time with Oprah's blessing. She read it cover to cover. She blessed what I shared in the book. But having said that, I talk about, the first time I ever met her, and then I talk about having lunch with her for the first time at her house, just one-on-one, me and her. And
so I was there the day you met her, right?
You were there.
First time. We were at an event, and you met her. I didn't meet her. But what was that like for you?
From the time I was a little girl sitting in my living room, right? I would sit in my living room watching Oprah every day, Monday through Friday, and her sharing her vulnerability, her sharing her, all the parts of her, not just the perfect part, right? All the parts. Like, she was my mentor who I'd never met. You know what I mean? Like, she helped me believe, like, maybe my dreams are possible. Like, my whole life. So I don't get starstruck. And with It Cosmetics, and growing, and then especially the L'Oreal acquisition, you have a lot of celebrities that want deals. They want makeup deals. So just because of that, you meet so many. So I think everyone's human. I think we all have the same doubts, same fears, same insecurities,
Are
same hopes.
Are they going to like me? Do they see me? Do they think I'm interesting?
We're all the same.
Yeah.
So I knew all that, right? And so the day that I met Oprah was at that event in LA, and it was a surprise. I didn't know it was happening. It's a long story, so I go into how it happened in the book too. But I ended up going into her green room, where it was just me and her. And I had never met her, and she's like, "Miss Kern," and I'm like,
wow,
I'm like freaking out.
Wow.
I was so out of my body in that thing. I literally just prayed for the right words, and all I could say was like, "Can you let me know if I can ever be of service to you?" Like, I didn't know what. Like, I didn't. It's the whole thing. And after I met her, I went and spent like 3 days writing an email to her.
Wow.
Like, how do I even? And so I talk about this whole process and talk about the whole thing. And I ended up getting invited to lunch at her house. And so we
one-on-one or with a small group?
One-on-one. Yeah, I didn't know until I showed up, but I spent days, like looking at all the things I was gonna, like, how do you bring her a
gift?
Yeah.
The woman who has it all.
Yeah, yeah. And so I won't give it up, but what I brought her is so crazy. It's so crazy. And it'll make everyone who reads it feel.
And you
really
get a
awesome.
car.
No, I know. I was like, what do you bring? And anyhow, after the day we had lunch, we spent a few hours together. And again, only sharing this because she has blessed it. She read the book cover to cover and gave me her blessing to share this story. But I left her house, and as I was leaving, she gave me her cell phone number. Mm-hmm. And she said, here's my number. Call me anytime. She's like,
you put the number in the book?
Oh my gosh, no. But
it's on page 100. No.
And this is recent, right? So she says, well, within the past couple of years, she said, you can call me anytime, like call me anytime. And I was like, thank you. And we did a video and all these things. To this day, Lewis,
You never called her? You never called her?
I text her.
Yeah.
I email her.
I would never call either.
Really? Okay, help me figure this out.
I would have only texted and just be like, hey, what can I do for you? How can I serve,
Yeah, and I realized, so if I have like a show, so I did a show with her friend Gail and and I'll ask her for feedback or this or that, and she's like, do you want the truth? And I'm like, yeah, please. And I'll text her, I'll call, but every time I text her and I email her, but every time I want to share something with her, even just anything, I don't call. I haven't called to this day.
I know.
And I was trying to figure out, why haven't I?
Why haven't you?
Like, I'm the person that literally in my heart and soul managed to go from Denny's waitress to billion-dollar entrepreneur, because I learned to believe in myself and believe I belong in the room and overcome rejection, overcome fear, but I am still a work in progress, right? And I'm like, I'm not calling Oprah because at a deep, 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 deep level, I still don't think my vibration is high enough to like be with hers. And I know that's a lie. I know it's a lie.
You've never called her?
Never called her. I know.
You should call her right now.
Oh my gosh. I know, but.
You should call her right now. You should. I think it'd be powerful to see if she picks up. Just say, hey, I appreciate you. That's it. Don't ask for anything. Just call her and see if you want to.
See, if I do it, it needs to feel like it's the exact.
Do it when you feel ready. Yeah. But I'm throwing it out there. Throwing it out there. Just to tell her what you appreciate.
Do you have these moments? Because I think maybe people, and by the way, I know anytime we feel like we're not worthy of being in the room with someone else, of being at their level, it's a lie we're telling ourselves. I know that, right? And even for me, it's still a work in progress for everything. And I was like ashamed and embarrassed when I realized why I hadn't called her. Do you know what I mean? And like, I'm the best freaking friend, and I have everyone, right? Like, I wouldn't have written a word unless she had blessed it in the book.
Course.
Like, I'm so loyal to people. So it's like, you know what I mean?
She told you to call.
I know.
A couple of years ago,
I know,
right?
yes.
On your drive home, you should call her.
Yes.
And just say, hey, I was just thinking about you and I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Don't ask for anything. Just say, hey, just want to see how you're doing. I appreciate you.
Is there anything you're afraid of where you haven't done like that? You haven't done it yet? Would you call her?
I'm the type of guy that I'm similar to you, but not because I wouldn't call her. I have friends who I know are so busy, who are extremely successful, and I just see how busy they are that I don't want to bother calling them, that I'll just text them or send them a voice message or a video message.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything, let me know.
Yeah.
And it's just, I know they're easier to respond over text, and maybe they would pick up or not, but it's just...
What are areas you have doubt that you struggle with doubt and still? Have you mastered it all?
No, I haven't mastered anything, I don't think. That's why I'm always learning.
Practically speaking, are there things that you do maybe to take care of yourself, invest in maybe even your faith?
Yeah. I mean, so the first thing, and this is actually Oprah's advice, and it's so true.
Love it.
We all need to learn how to listen, how to get still and actually listen to ourselves, right? And if you think about this is hard for people. There are so many people, and when a lot of people do a 5-minute or 10-minute morning routine where they meditate or pray or whatever. And it's like, I even remember, and this still happens to me to this day, that when I meditate, I'll like all of a sudden catch myself going through a to-do list in my head, or this or that, right? It is a journey. It's a journey of learning, but we have to take that first step and make it a daily practice. And again, it could be 5 minutes where your phone is nowhere near you. Your computer's nowhere near you. If you live with someone else, they're nowhere near you. and I don't even let my puppies come in. I literally shut myself, usually in my closet. I sit on the floor and just take that 5 minutes and really try to get still. Just try to get still and listen to who you are and connect, right? With your faith, with your creator. For some people, it's with the universe, right? But let's just get still and just start, because you have to build that foundation. And it builds over time, and it's a life journey. It's a life journey. And two thoughts to share with you. I've never shared like 95% of the stories and lessons in this book, personally, professionally, I've never shared before. And one of the things I talk about is the journey of faith. And, I was raised going to church, and I literally, my parents are going to be mortified when they read this, but I grew up sitting in church pews because I had to every Sunday. Literally nothing the pastor said resonated with me. I didn't understand the words, how the words were written when the Bible was written. I would just sit through the whole sermon like scanning for cute boys in the church and just like watching the minutes go by, hoping it would end soon, right? So I was raised, I believed in God, I prayed, but like nothing ever, I never connected with any of it. And then as I went off to college, and I was working as a Denny's waitress to pay my way through school. I started meeting lots of different types of people, and I eventually went to graduate school in New York and met people from all walks of life, all different countries and backgrounds, and and so many people that I started meeting did not believe in God, and they only believed in things that you could prove and see and touch and feel, for which faith is not required. And a lot of their science-based arguments made a ton of sense to me. And I went through a season in life in my early 20s, early and mid 20s and late 20s, where I really started to doubt God existed. And it kind of freaked me out, but I would pray and then I would feel like I'm inauthentic because I'm praying, and yet I'm not sure God exists, right? And this was a few years, and it started to really affect me. And then, while I found out I was adopted, and I was like, I don't even know where I come from. I don't know who my parents are. I don't know if God exists. And I went through a really tough season in my life. And I was raised, the families I was raised in the Seattle area, they never went to therapy or counselors, nothing. If there was like a issue or a problem, they just like either didn't talk about it or just like figured out how to deal with it. And I went through this season, and I think, and I've never shared this before, but I think this is important because my whole goal is for people to feel like they're not alone, and to really understand the story behind the story, not just see some billion-dollar success story, but the real story. And I went through a season where I was like, I am feeling really depressed. I started having panic attacks, and I was like, I have to do something about this. And I didn't even tell anybody in my family. And I started seeing a therapist. I was working as a news anchor in Portland, Oregon. I started seeing a therapist, and one of the days with her, I said, and by the way, her name is Dr. Z, and she is like no BS, like no joke. And she only probably said, I don't know anything about her, but the first day I was in her office, she's like, I only take appointments like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you don't cancel within 24 hours, you have to pay, and I'm a lesbian. And I'm like, okay. And I figured that she must have had experiences where that mattered to people, but I was like, okay. Anyhow, she ended up being this angel in my life. I don't remember how long I had been seeing her for. She helped me with panic attacks, with depression. She helped me get through all of that. And one day I told her, I said, I'm starting to doubt God exists. And I don't know who my parents are or where I come from. And I'm just going through this season where I'm just down. And she said something to me that day that changed my life and my faith journey forever. She said, well, let me ask you a question. if if God created the whole universe, what makes you think he can't handle your doubt? I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, why don't you try something? Why don't you start telling him you doubt him and ask him to prove you wrong? And I was like, huh. And that changed my life, because every time I prayed, I started saying, all the prayers. And then I'd be like, and by the way, God, I think I'm doubting you exist. And so can you please show up and prove to me, like without a shadow of a doubt, that you're real? Because right now I can't tell you I believe you're real. And like, I just literally, that would be part of my prayer. And, for me, it didn't happen immediately, but it started happening, like more stories than I can even share. We're so all but literally screaming to me, God exists. I mean, one quick one, 30-second one is like, after years, right, of hearing no from every beauty retailer, down to under $1,000 in our bank account, I was at this big beauty product demonstration expo. There were 6,000 women there. All the heads of every beauty company was there, and QVC had a huge booth. And that day I was like, you weren't allowed to leave your 3-foot table, that you demonstrate your product. And the reason why you go there is you hope you win one of their awards, or that a retailer discovers you. So like, in that big beauty expo was, of course, all the most beautiful brands, like, L'Oreal and Lancome and MAC and Bobbi Brown, and brands I love. And then I'm like, and I'm here with It Cosmetics, and like, no one had heard of us. And I'm like at this 3-foot booth demonstrating. And that day, a woman came up to me and said like, and I was just talking to thousands of women, so I wasn't even paying attention. I didn't even realize that she was a QVC host. I didn't know this at the time, but she came up to me, was talking about the product, and then I snuck off and tried to meet the buyer. And anyways, long story short, a few hours later, this woman came back to me at my booth, and she says, hello, my name is Miss Lisa Mason, and I'm a QVC show host, and I think your product is amazing, and I think our QVC customers would love it, and I just want you to know that I just marched myself over to our head buyer of QVC, and I told her we need this product, and we need to give this young girl a chance, and all this thing. And I was like, and I looked at her, and like tears started streaming down my face, and I think I freaked her out, because and she's like, oh, honey, I don't have any decision-making power. Like, I think your product's great. And I told the buyer, and I was like, thank you. And she didn't know what I knew, which is that I was years into rejection, no money, not knowing what I was going to do. And fast forward, she's the reason we got a meeting with QVC, right? Then they launched us. They gave us one shot on air in 10 minutes. And I knew if we didn't sell and hit their sales goal, we'd go bankrupt, because we had to pour every penny we had in this one shot. And they paired me with her for that opening airing. And then she retired from QVC. And then we go on from that one shot, we finally got a yes. And we did 5 more shows that first year, and 150. And we built up to doing over 250 live shows a year on QVC. And what's wild about this is, they said no for years. They said, we're not the right fit, we're not the right fit for them or their customer. We built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history, and it is right now at this moment to this day. And I just share that because, like, from years of rejection, right? Like, no one can tell you you're not the right fit. No one can tell you any of that, right? And when they do, you have to decide not to listen to it. And we went from hearing that we're not the right fit to the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And so when this happened, I decided to call that show host that gave us that, that believed in me that day and loved our concealer. I called her up and I said, hey, I just want to call you to thank you. And she says, well, congratulations. I go, yeah. I said, we're the largest brand at QVC now. Like, I go, this is crazy. I go, and you know what? If you didn't love our product so much that day, like thank you for loving our concealer, because like you loved it. And then we got this one shot, and then now we're the big, and all this. And she goes, honey, I love your concealer, but I wear it every day, but that is not why I went up to you that day. That's not. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she says, I was just walking that show, and God clearly told me, go up to you and help that young girl. She goes, all I did was listen. And I was just like, whoa, right? And it was just like, there's been so many stories like that where when I started praying, God, I do not believe you because I'm doubting it. Like, please prove me wrong. he did, and he does, and he continues to. And some are really small stories and some are big stories. And, so for me, I think, again, you go back to asking for what you need, right? Authenticity. I started praying that. And I feel like, that, and then also just the journey of asking that from my birth mom, all of that. I think that, I think it's all woven through in everything that we experience that allows us to kind of step into who we are.
How do you believe in yourself, especially in a moment like right now where the future is right in front of you and it is swirling with endings and with beginnings? That's always how I feel in the summer, right? Summer is supposed to be this awesome time where we relax, we dial it down. If you're lucky and you can get to the beach, that's fantastic, or a pool. But when I'm at the beach, you know what I'm thinking about? My freaking future and the endings and the beginnings. And today I want to throw how you believe in yourself in the middle of all these endings and beginnings. And how do you believe in yourself when you haven't even started taking the actions? How do you believe in yourself when you don't know how this thing is going to turn out that you really want to do? Well, my guest today, she's a super close friend of mine, and she is somebody you want to hear from right now. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about none other than Jamie Kern Lima. She's the founder of It Cosmetics, which she started in her living room, and she sold it to L'Oreal for $1 billion. And here's the thing that I love about Jamie. Jamie is the queen of learning how to believe in yourself, because when she started It Cosmetics, she was not some influencer with daddy's money. No. She didn't get a degree in how to start a company. She was a waitress at Denny's with terrible skin rosacea, like the bright pink kind of breakouts all over her cheeks. And it was that rosacea and that hardworking work ethic from being a Denny's waitress that made her create her own foundation. And that was the beginning of this $1 billion company that she created in her living room, It Cosmetics. And I know you're going to love hearing from her, which is why I am so excited that you're here to talk to us about your journey. You are one of my favorite human beings of all time. I cannot thank you enough, Jamie, for being here as my friend and for being here as the professor on the topic of purpose and learning how to believe in yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big, warm Mel Robbins podcast welcome to Jamie Kern Lima.
Mel, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun and real and raw, and I can't wait. And I hope it just adds so much value to everyone listening. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
There's no question, because you have those friends in your life that you don't see very often. Mm. But every time you do, it's like no time has disappeared, and you just have this like kind of twinkle on your skin because you just love being with this person. I love you so much, Jamie. I'm actually mad at you that you live so far away from me. So maybe we should just start right there.
I love you. Thank you. I feel the very same way. And one of the things I want to share, I know we're going to dive in deep on purpose. By the way, I love Purpose Professor. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, because it's one of our biggest life questions. How do I find my purpose? But I just want to say, Mel, something really important to me that I didn't want to leave here without saying. You can edit this out if you don't like it, but everybody listening needs to know this. You are one of the rare human beings that is the same off air, behind the scenes, in your everyday life as you are in all the public things. You know what I mean? And you and I have both met so many celebrities and so many people with millions and millions of followers, and it's very rare they're the same. And one of the things I love so much about you is you are even more funny, even more intelligent and brilliant and kind and raw and real in real life. So that congruency is like 1 in a billion. And I love you, and I'm just grateful to be here for you.
Wow. Okay.
Just that.
I think the episode's over now. No, we got to go back in time because, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because the entire mission of this show is to empower and inspire you listening to us right now to create a better life, whatever that means for you. To take the simple steps that sometimes feel impossible to pursue your dreams, to improve your health, to create greater connections, to believe in yourself. And Jamie truly is not only the professor of purpose, but her life story is a demonstration in cultivating belief. belief in your ideas, belief in your intuition, belief in God, belief that things will turn out. And so I want to go back in time because, I've heard you on the stages that you speak around the world talk about how you started as a waitress in Denny's.
Mm-hmm.
And then from waitressing at Denny's, pursued a dream that you had of being on television.
Mm-hmm.
And as a fellow former waitress, I would love to start there.
Yeah, waitress at Denny's, full uniform, name tag to prove
Oh,
it.
I forgot they had uniforms.
Full uniform.
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh gosh, I love the pancakes. You know what? Just like simple. It's so funny how our steps are ordered, I think, in life. And so often, I remember being a waitress at Denny's. I remember feeling, and maybe someone listening to us can relate to this right now. You have this feeling inside of you like there's something more I'm supposed to do, but you don't know what it is yet. And you doubt it might be possible. And I remember being a waitress at Denny's and just feeling like I have these big dreams, but not quite knowing like, how do I believe I'm worthy of them yet? And it was this big season in my life. At the same time, Mel, the kitchen at the Denny's I worked at was a disaster. Like they would take an hour to get pancakes out. So I learned to talk to people so that they wouldn't leave. They often did leave. Or they'd throw like a dime and a penny on the table and leave.
As your tip, as if it's your fault.
Yeah,
that the
exactly.
Food were.
But it's so funny how, years later when I ended up launching my own business, I'm like, oh, I've got to get the operations right or nothing else matters. It's just those little things we learn along the way. But yeah, after that, I thought my whole life I would have a talk show. I watched Oprah in my living room growing up, so I thought for sure I would share other people's stories with the world. So I went into, did all the jobs, saved up all my money to pay for school, and push grocery carts in the grocery parking lot, sliced meat in the deli, all those fun jobs, and then found myself in what I thought was my dream job, working in TV news. And I thought, this is it, right? And what I didn't realize was I was about to enter this huge season of setback in my life, of self-doubt. I have a skin condition called rosacea. And for me, it started getting really red, really bumpy. And I would be anchoring the news live, thinking like, okay, this is it. And I started hearing in my earpiece from my producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You need to wipe it off. You need to. And I was live on television, right? And I would glance down during the commercial break and I saw, oh, the makeup is breaking up on my face and these big red bumps are coming through. And it started this season that felt like setback. But so often in life, the seasons that feel like setbacks are actually setups for what we're called to do.
Okay, stop right there. Did you hear that? The seasons of your life that are setbacks are often setups for what you're called to do. I want to just make sure everybody heard that. And I want to take a highlighter and also highlight something that you said about being a waitress at Denny's. And it's this. You said our steps are ordered.
Mhm.
So can you explain what that means, particularly to somebody who's listening,
Yeah.
who may feel like, I know I'm meant for something greater.
Yes.
Why the hell am I at this step? And this does not feel like it is like on the path of where I'm supposed to go. So what do you mean by the fact that our steps are ordered?
Yeah. I believe, everything in life
Yep.
is happening for us, even when it doesn't make sense.
Can we just, what do you mean happening for us?
I
So to
think-
somebody that's like really in it, Jamie,
Yes.
what does that mean?
Let me frame it around our topic of purpose, right?
Okay.
So often people feel empty because they feel like, oh, my purpose needs to be some job. It needs to be my job, or it needs to be this grand thing I haven't figured out yet. But for those of us that have accomplished a goal we always dreamed of, we get to it and we're like, oh, this isn't it, right? It's never, in my opinion, purpose is never this big goal necessarily. Purpose is so often when we're able to serve the person we once were, or serve in a way for something we've gone through. And here's what I mean. I think our purpose can be like, oh, wow, I went through a really freaking hard season in my life. And I now am actually realizing I'm born to be a generational cycle breaker in my family. That is an incredible purpose, right? Purpose can be like, oh, I've been having a hard season for a long time. And when I actually just take a minute and say hi to someone else who's lonely, maybe it's like in the coffee line at Starbucks, maybe it's the neighbor down the street, whatever it is, you feel in your gut a sense of fulfillment, like a sense of alignment when you're doing something in your purpose. And I think that the big mistake people make is they think it's this end goal, right? A lot of times when people hear my story and they hear the, oh, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company, they think my purpose was to be some big entrepreneur.
It wasn't?
It wasn't.
What was it?
In the journey of how I did it,
Yeah.
I took this massive risk, right? Taking my makeup off on national television when I was told not to, and being brave enough to be seen and helping other women realize that they're worthy and enough exactly as they are, seeing them as who they are. To me, that is my purpose. And in doing that, it just a byproduct of that with It Cosmetics is we built a company with millions and millions and millions and millions of customers. And what's wild is 5% of our customers actually have skin issues like I do. 95% don't. It's just that they felt seen and connected with something that spoke to their soul, right? For me, being willing to say, here I am exactly as I am, no makeup and, all my skin issues. I think people connected with that feeling of, oh, I'm enough exactly as I am.
You know what else I think is a really important part of your story? It is waitressing.
Yeah.
It's pushing carts in a supermarket.
Yeah.
It's working in the back house of a restaurant. That's
Yes.
my story too. Helping my best friend on her paper route, bussing tables. And I think when you work in retail or you work in a service job,
Yeah.
and you feel at times invisible, you start to realize how important it is to treat everybody with respect and kindness.
Yes.
That there is no work that is beneath you. And when you can bring that level of service to the job that you have right now, even if you hate it, even if people treat you like garbage, even if the back of the house is not getting those pancakes out on time and people are angry, if you can bring a sense of grace and service and just humility to those roles, I think it changes how you show up when things start working out, because you don't ever forget what it's like to be treated like shit.
Yes.
Because somebody was mad that their pancakes weren't out on time.
Yes. Yes. And also, you and I have had this experience where we've truly gotten to see and be almost every type of person in every type of environment. And so now it's like, whether it's me building a business or you building one of the top shows in the world, I feel part of that was like, oh, we understand who's listening and watching you right now. I understand who real people are who built, who bought my products. And so when you mentioned steps are ordered, it's like, no matter where you are in your life right now, what you're going through, I believe every piece of it, whether it's, oh, someone just, cut me off in a parking lot and screamed at me, or, oh, whatever it might be you're going through, all of those things are happening for you, I believe,
I love that.
so that you're amassing this toolbox of understanding and getting strong enough and equipped enough for the purpose you step into.
Amazing. So Professor of Purpose, Jamie Kern Lima, right there. That's your takeaway number one. The steps are ordered. Believe in that. And this moment is helping you. It's giving you something. So that is one major tool that you used along the way. Let's go back to that moment, because I think you were 28 years old, right? When you're sitting on television in Seattle.
Yeah.
You are a local news anchor. You're living the dream. You're on your way. And you are now starting to have this nightmare happen.
Yes.
Where your rosacea is breaking through on camera in front of everybody, the makeup that they put on you.
Yes.
And you've got people in your ear telling you there's something wrong with your face.
Yes.
And you're realizing, holy cow, the makeup that they've put on my face cannot cover the rosacea and the skin issues that I have. So what do you do in that moment?
Well, the first thing I did was start freaking out, right? And I like literally I started entering this season of self-doubt where I would be live on the air, anchoring the news, thinking thoughts in my head like, "Oh, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel right now? Like, am I costing the company ratings?" Right? So it was this
Could you
big.
feel those moments when you could feel like the makeup not kind of like disappearing? Like there were moments when I used to be a commentator for CNN. I was pre-menopausal where I could feel the hot flash coming.
Yeah. I didn't feel it until they said it in my ear and in my
Oh,
earpiece. And then what would start to happen was I would get so nervous and stressed out because I kept trying to cover it during commercial breaks. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. So what I remember is like anchoring the news live, and sometimes you have to be happy, tell this happy story, or you're serious telling. And I just remember my heart beating in my ears, hoping people weren't changing the channel.
oh
And
my
and
God.
it started this thing where I would spend it's funny. I was anchoring the news, and people think when you're doing that, you must have all this money, but you really don't get paid much at all. And I
No.
took my little paycheck that I had and started spending it on department store makeup, professional artistry makeup, drugstore makeup. I couldn't find anything that worked. And I had this idea one day, like, oh, if I can't find anything that works for me, there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that feel like makeup doesn't work for them. And it was sort of this idea where I was like, if I could figure out how to make something that worked for me, it helped a whole lot of people. And that was my knowing, or this gut feeling. But then my head, Mel, was like, oh, but you got no money, you got no connections, no one in the beauty industry, you're unqualified. So I sat in this place, right? And we're talking about purpose. I had this gut feeling like I was supposed to go for this thing, but then my head was like, oh, but here's all the reasons why you're not qualified to do it. Plus, you're in your dream job, right? And I sat between those two. And it wasn't until I had this big aha moment of why I needed to do it that pushed me over the edge.
Okay, so what is the aha moment?
Yeah, so I realized one day, I'm like, this makes no sense. There are thousands of makeup companies out there. How does nothing work for me, right? Then I had this moment where I realized I've never seen a model with bright red bumpy skin saying, selling makeup. Like you always see these photoshopped, airbrushed
Yeah.
models. And I realized, Mel, like, wow, my whole life I've actually loved those beauty commercials, and I love seeing the magazines, and I always aspired to look like them, but deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. And I had this moment. I was literally on the news set when this happened, where I was like, wait a minute. What if it's not just about launching a makeup product? Like what if I could actually figure out how to do it, which I had no idea how, and I had no money. It was like, what if I could actually launch a product that works for me? And what if I actually put real people as models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge? What if I use them as models, call them beautiful, and mean it for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves, and every grown woman who still does, and that deep source of pain from how I was feeling not enough, and what could I do about it? That, in my opinion, is one of the strongest ways to find your purpose. It's what has just destroyed you or hurt you that you've maybe made it through.
Yeah.
And how can you now use that making it through to help someone who's going through it?
Okay. That's like a mic drop moment from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. So again, I like to unpack these things to make sure this is a I always say this is not just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. And I want to make sure nobody's left behind.
Yes.
And there was billions of dollars worth of wisdom that you just dropped. And so I want to try to unpack it for anybody that is listening to this and you have this sense that you're made for more.
Yes.
So one of the things that I heard is look in your life and see what problems or frustrations or things that you're struggling with that feel like a setback. And Jamie gave you the example of the rosacea on her skin and her inability to find something that actually could help her solve this issue of being able to cover it up so that she could do her dream job. And that setback is a setup for something new. And then get out of your own sort of selfish or self-loathing or the self-excuses and the self-pity and remind yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet now. There are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that if you can figure out how to put your energy into making this better for yourself, and you bring other people into the fold with you, you now have something that's worth working on because it helps you and it's going to help other people. And I also want to point something out that Jamie will not tell you, but I sure as hell will. And that is that this was about 14 or 15 years ago. So we're talking 2007, 2008, correct? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, Jamie Kern Lima is the reason why we have this real beauty movement. There always has to be the first person, and she was it. So when you look around the internet and social media and you see people doing naked faces, that was not something people did in 2007. It was all airbrush. It was all perfection. That was the beauty standard. There were no plus size or curvy models. That was not a thing back then. And so you've got a woman who is sitting in Seattle, who has no experience and no money, deciding that she is going to not only figure out how to create a makeup line for people who have issues with their skin, but that she's going to do something nobody has ever done, which is put real, normal people like you and me into her campaigns when she finally gets this figured out. And she's going to show people what her skin actually looks like in order to sell it. I mean, that was a revolutionary idea. She was the first. And I'm telling you this because you could be the first. You have something inside of you that is a problem, something that you can solve. And you could be the first to change the way that people think about an issue. And so, Jamie, let's pick up the story, because how do you go from this aha moment, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to doing something?
Yes.
Because I think some of us have aha moments, right?
Yep. And then we
don't do anything.
Yes, because we doubt him. We doubt him. We think like, oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Or, oh, whatever. First of all, if you're out there right now and you think, oh, you have an idea or a way you want to show up in the world, or someone else you want to help, but you think, oh, someone's already done it. Literally, there's only one of you in the entire universe, which by definition means no one has ever done it the way you're going to do it. So when I launched this.
Say that again, Jamie, for the people that are like, whoa, 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 kids. Calm down. Wait, Jamie just said something. I was doing my dishes. Say that again. Talk about the fact that this matters.
This is huge because I think the biggest reason we talk ourselves out of things is we think, oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Someone's already done it before, who must be smarter than me or more talented or more whatever it is than me. And what I have learned and then proven. And I want to tell you too about, I'm going to get so excited, Mel, because when you do this thing, like, don't be shocked then when there's millions and millions of rejections and people don't get it, right? Because it's never been done before, right?
Oh, yes.
Because there's only one of you. There's only one of you doing it the way you're going to do it. But just to recap that, there is literally only one of you in the entire universe, right? And so if you are going to show up to this world authentic, that means whatever you do, if it's authentic to you, it's actually, by definition, it's never been done before, right? And so when you show up that way, don't be surprised if not everyone gets it right away. Or, in my case, all the experts I put on pedestals all said no, that this idea of how I wanted to connect with women, they thought it wouldn't work, and they thought I wouldn't therefore make them any money.
But can I ask you a question real quick? How did you go from the aha?
Yes.
To starting. So what did that look like? Like, because I think like if you're in this space where, let's just use an example. You've never actually, you don't know the first, you have this thing about catering that you just can't get it out of your head. You want to do these events. You've never actually done this because you had never done anything with makeup. You had no idea what you were doing.
Yep.
You have an idea and you have an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first thing that you did to start to make this real?
So leaning on that, why I had to do it and why it felt like it was going to be part of my purpose was a big thing that helped me actually take the risk, quit my job.
Wait, you quit your job because you had an aha moment?
Yeah, it was deep. I was like, if I had
What did it feel like?
It felt like if I didn't do it, I would wake up the rest of my life with this pain in my gut, this longing, knowing I was created for more. It felt like if I didn't do it, I would have the pain of regret. And if I did do it, I might have the pain of failure and maybe the pain of embarrassment and then maybe the pain of, oh, wow, that doesn't feel like it went how I thought it was. I knew it was this big risk. I knew I was leaving what I thought was my dream job.
Why did you have to quit your job? Just curious.
It was literally from day one, I was all in. I dove all in. I knew if I was going to do this, I needed to just go all in on it. I started, I do not recommend this, but I started working like 100-hour weeks from the beginning. I was so freaking passionate about it. Like I couldn't stop thinking about what if I can actually figure this out. What if I can literally, because it became a big
So did you have
dream.
any savings? Like, do you have a little bit of
Very
savings?
little
Because you didn't
savings.
pay yourself for the first 3 years that you did this.
First 3 years. So basically, my husband and I wrote this business plan, right?
Yep.
Quit our jobs, dove all in our living room. We poured all of our savings into it. I thought, Mel, and this is for someone watching us right now, I know this. I thought if I can figure the product out, it's going to be huge.
Right.
And then I realized, like, oh, being an entrepreneur or launching a dream is not always that easy. We poured every penny we had into it, and once we actually created a product, and we were scrappy. If you want to know
how did you create a product? Like, are you in your kitchen buying stuff at the grocery store, or how does this even work?
Okay, so first, I love that technology is right there, right? So researching how are makeup formulations made, who makes them, what are the FDA regulatory compliance, all the unsexy stuff I know nothing about. Just diving into the research phase of how does this happen. And then what I learned is that manufacturers are makeup companies' closest held secrets, right? Like closest held secrets. They won't disclose who they work with, but a lot of these big manufacturers work with all the top brands that you see or a handful of them.
Gotcha.
So I started.
So are you saying that all of the brands and top brands that you see are basically manufactured by a handful of companies?
Yes, handful of companies, and then some do it in-house as well.
Gotcha.
So what I did was scrappy. I walked into a Sephora. I wrote down the name of every single brand in there, went home. I had no money, right? Cold call every single brand and saying like, oh, I'm looking for a really great manufacturer. Could you let me know who you manufacture? And then they hang up on me. You know what I mean? One after another, after another, after another. And I got this really small brand in a totally different kind of positioning where the girl who answered said, oh, here's who we use. They're in New York City, blah, blah, blah. So that was my first manufacturer. Reached out to them, had a meeting in person, had no money, poured this idea out to them. They took a risk making me samples. And that's how it started, was just really being scrappy and trying to figure it out. All of our money had went into the product development formula and the advisory board of the product. And I thought, okay, now we have a product that works for me, right? This was after hundreds of formula iterations. I thought that was going to be it.
So is this like year one or year two? Like how long did this take?
Yeah, it took a good first year to get that product. And then what I started doing was sending it to everyone I thought was just going to believe in me instantly. So I sent it to Sephora and Ulta Beauty and all the department stores and all of the online retailers, QVC, which is, live television shopping channel. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. Every single one of them said no, after no, after no, after no. And to your point, it became 3 years of not being able to pay myself, 3 years of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's, of crying myself to sleep at night.
Were you and your husband like fighting like crazy? Like, you should go back to work. But why do we do that? Like, were you like doing that?
You want to know what it was?
Yeah.
We still believed in it, but we weren't sure how we were going to make it. It was like friends and family that were like, wait, you quit your job? Are you sure you should have quit your job? Or wait, you still haven't made any money? Like, it's been 3 years, right? So you hear all of this, the voices get so loud.
Yeah.
The loudest, though, were my own self-doubt. Sometimes we take a chance and go for something because our gut is telling us to do it. And then all of a sudden you face all this opposition and you start to question, is my gut wrong? Is my knowing wrong? And there were so many times where I would literally get another brutal no from, Sephora or QVC or whoever it was. And I would just literally cry myself to sleep. I would pray about it and be like, God, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, but nothing is going right.
Ladies and gentlemen,
single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.